Hello and welcome to Inside the Third Space. In each episode, we delve into the concept of being in the third space through the unique perspective of different individuals, uncovering their insights, experiences, and identity. My name is Diana Saragi Turnip, an educational developer at the Faculty of Medicine and Health at UNSW Sydney. Third space to me feels like being a media producer in a live broadcast. You're not on camera, but you're shaping the narrative. In higher education, I work between academics and professional staff, translating ideas, managing tension, and making sure the final story lands. It's creative, relational, and often invisible. But without it, nothing quite holds together. Here with me today, a media producer and trainer for UNSW Faculty Medicine and Health, Matt Oxley. Matt, thank you for joining us.
It's a privilege to be on the podcast today. Thank you, Deanna.
So, to start us off, tell us more about your role and how long have you been at UNSW community?
Sure. So my role as a media producer and trainer has been my role since I started here at UNSW almost a decade ago.
Wow.
I originally was part-time, now full-time, and that is partly because of the demand of media production. I'm pretty sure that everyone listening today would be aware that ever since 2005, with the introduction of high bandwidth internet technologies, that with the rise of YouTube, video became very accessible and somewhat of a necessity to have in all aspects of online life, whether it was commercial, educational, or entertainment. And so my journey here involved a little bridging period of time where I was working in the commercial space as a media producer. I'm also trained as an actor. I went to NIDA, I've been to Screenwise, and I also am a filmmaker. So I moved from the commercial space across into the educational space. I did a few years over at Macquarie University, and then there was a need for someone to help produce some educational material here in the population health school in medicine and health. And it sort of blossomed from there. People heard that, there's this guy that can make good quality media. It's received well. And my job, I see very much, is to make that process an enjoyable one.
What a wonderful story you have there. So how does the third space relate to your role? And describe your journey towards becoming a third space professional.
As a crux, my existence here is to ensure that the material is not just made in the way that the educators themselves, the academics, and indeed the guests, because a lot of people in the medicine and health faculty are working professionals that as conjoints come in and do a very small stint of teaching for students. And so the expertise of these people is often isn't backed by a large experience of pedagogy and education and teaching practice, although what they have to give is so valuable to students that need to learn that. So sitting at the apex of that, I find myself trying to work out what is the best way using audiovisual technologies to present their material, because much like the journey and the use of media in online spaces, I think universities first thought, oh, cool, we'll just record the lecture and put it online, which has its place. And as a student from UNSW myself, I studied media communications and film back in the early 2000s, which has been a great use for my role here at UNSW. We realized that just recording a lecture and making it available to people online was helpful only for one sort of context, people that weren't able to turn up in person. But our entire ecosystem of learning has changed now because it's a partnership between both in-person teaching and online technologies. And so it's really exciting knowing that we have all of these online technologies, which can utilize audiovisual mediums to teach, not just pulling something that was live and putting it online, but then assessing, what's the best way to do that? Can we narrow it down into smaller chapters? Does that give us an opportunity to maybe embed some interactive materials in that? And how can I, as a trainer, as well as a media producer, encourage our educators and conveners of courses to work alongside educational developers to think about, well, yeah, video is good for imparting information, but how can I really engage the students? How can I improve that online learning experience?
So, when did you first hear about third space? And what does the third space term mean to you?
It's funny, I think you were the one that actually told me about the third space. My world is very much focused on the audiovisual mediums. I'm constantly focused on video production, whether that's the filmmaking that I do outside of the university, but also when I'm here on campus, I'm looking at new materials. I'm creating material to help teach people how to make media, as well as doing the job of making media for academics. The third space, I think, is very helpful to help identify my placement at the uni, because a lot of times I would kind of call myself the tradie of academics. Someone would say, I need to get this thing made. Can you do it? And so I'm not the academic. I'm not the informational professional. But I've got to make something, So I didn't necessarily feel like I fitted into one camp or another, but I knew that I had one foot in both spaces. So the term third space, I think, is helpful for what we're doing now, which is grouping and communicating and creating a community of people to share with one another about their experiences, to talk about things like different cultures, the different cultures that we both fit into, but that we work with, those that are behind the scenes, that are doing lots of different support work, and those that are in front of the students delivering the content in person. And if you've listened through the other episodes of these podcasts, you'll hear lots of different perspectives and also references to personality types and how to deal and interact with the different sorts of personalities that we deal with those cultures. So what's important about third space? It's about defining a group of people that have a set of skills which is useful for being an intermediary between the teachers, the students, and the technologies.
So you mentioned in there the challenges you have, right? Do you see any other challenges that other third space professional might face?
I guess it's contextual. I mean, even just inside the university itself, across all the faculties, I've had the privilege of working within the science faculty and also working with business and engineering at different times. And it's really interesting to see that even the same job as a media producer encompasses different skill sets and different ways of making it, the technology that you use and the different location and context that you're in, just to produce a piece of media. So each different faculty, I've realized, has their own way of making things. The different academics in those spaces have almost grouped personalities and skill sets. The different technological skills of people in one faculty are different to another. And you can hand over some of those skills to one group of people, and others are just like, no, I don't get it. I just want to do my teaching, So what are the challenges that people might face? Well, it will depend on what faculty they're in, who they're working with, and what project they're producing. But all the time, I think the skill set that people in the third space need to be aware of and feel comfortable in is being aware, is just being aware of the audience that they're making things for, being aware of the people that they're working with, and finding a way to feel comfortable sitting in the wedge in the middle and kind of just, I guess, enjoying the process of learning themselves how to do their job the best with that sort of personality and being open to the sorts of experiences that they'll have.
Yeah. So, what would you say to people who wants to explore a role in a third space? Or do you have any advice to all our peers, our listeners, like who call themselves third space professionals?
Yeah. I like, be yourself. We all know everyone is an individual and we all have different personalities and strengths. And I think, who was I listening to? I think the very first podcast referred to the challenge of being a professional in the third space and taking care of yourself, because when you end up taking time off or you're sick and you need to step away from it, you've got these lovely people that you work with that your workload ends up falling upon. And so there's that challenge of knowing that you work with a really unique, special bunch of people who you are as much a colleague with as you are a friend of, who have an important role in producing the material. So there's, I guess you could say that in almost every job, the personal versus the work, meeting the objectives and the goals and those sorts of things. So I think, if we just lean into being true to who we are, allowing our personality to shine through, because our experience lends to the end result just as much as the academics that are presenting the material, and being aware of the cultures of the audience that are absorbing that material. I think we play an important part in that. So my advice is for people to be themselves and to embrace their own inner, whether that's creativity or academics or analytics, hobbies, skills, even maybe their weaknesses, perhaps, is to be aware of those. But I think communication is important in this role, especially. So lean into that and maybe enjoy learning new skills too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. And I really enjoyed talking with you today. So thank you for joining us and sharing your insights. To the listener, thank you for tuning in to Inside the Third Space. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the third space. This episode of Inside the Third Space was presented by me, Diana Saragi-Turnip. Our editor is An Nguyen and our producer is Agnita Amarnath. We were joined today by our guest, Matt Oxley.